Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. It's finally stopped raining here in the UK, but it has been a little windy, which I'm hoping is going to dry the ground over at Worthy Farm, which can only be a good thing as I prepare to make my pilgrimage to Glastonbury Festival next week, put the tech away and sleep in a tent for 5 days. Now, although Twitter feeds will focus on the headliners at the Glastonbury event, for me, I love soaking up the sights and sounds of over 1,000 acts across 50 stages and diverse offerings from everything from baby metal to Jeff Goldblum. And no, I'm not joking. But I just love getting lost and exploring new stuff while I'm there because I love my music. And the reason I mention all that is because I think it's quite relevant to today's guest. Because I recently came across a company called PEX, P-E-X. And PEX delivers independent video and music analytics and rights management services that actually enable creators, right holders and marketers to find, measure and leverage the value of content all the way across the web. And PEX integrates its cutting-edge proprietary fingerprinting and indexing technology to identify music and videos across all of the major social platforms and beyond. But it's the story behind the company that's even more inspirational than that. And it's a great story, and I really do hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Los Angeles so we can speak with Rusty Turek, founder and CEO of PEX. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Rusty Turek. Thank you for having me. I'm the founder of a company called PEX, and we essentially are a search engine for audiovisual content, very similar to Google, just with focus on video and audio.
Now, although this is a tech podcast, I'm also passionate about sharing the very human stories behind the tech startup. So before we talk about PEX, can you just share your story about entrepreneurship that began in the most unexpected way possible? When I believe your father started his own tractor business in Czechoslovakia, I think it was after the communist era. I mean, can you just tell me about that upbringing and how that inspired you?
Yeah, well, my dad... or kind of step back, during the communist era, everything was owned by the country, by the state, by the people in air quotes, by the chosen ones. And so nobody could run their business, nobody could really own anything. And after the era ended in 1989, a few people started looking around and trying to figure out what it means to actually run a business. And so my father was one of those people, and he was employed at this company making tractors. That was fairly large, delivering them all across the globe. And with a couple of people, they decided that they can do it too, maybe even better. And so they started slowly, just first making parts, selling them locally, and then spreading from that part. And so I kind of observed his troubles and his growth as an entrepreneur. And it was fascinating to me. I remember when I was 11, I told him, I really want to be an entrepreneur because when I'm looking at you, you don't do anything. You just walk around and talk to people. And so I thought that's the most glamorous job ever.
I love that story. And of course, flash forward a few decades and you're now in California and you started PEX and made that dream a reality. But again, things didn't go to plan to begin with, as your first project was great, but it didn't actually have the right market potential. So what happened there originally?
And so I tried a couple of things before. Some went well, some didn't. PEX was kind of the offshoot of the last one where we were trying to build a second screen app very similar to Shazam just for video. Took a while to build it. It didn't really get a traction from the kind of a market perspective, from the partner's perspective. So we started focusing towards rights management, mostly platform-based. That means we build a system or service that they could implement in their own services and use those. But we realized very quickly that essentially the market potential is very small. And we saw a better opening for much larger market, and we started moving towards it. And we couldn't figure out why nobody does it. And after a while, it became apparent that the reason why nobody done it, it's almost impossible to do it. So we kind of suffered through for almost 3 years to really push through the kind of the challenges on the market, and got lucky that we got where we are.
A man much wiser than me once said to me, he said, Neil, I don't fail, I learn. And that's always stuck with me because I think it's so true of startup life, and failure is actually a great opportunity. So when you were forced to start from scratch with your new startup called PEX, what were the biggest lessons that helped you build on that success?
Well, most of them are around people. And it's interesting because I've read a lot of books, and especially business-related books, or maybe in the past. And so I always thought, as Picasso always said, the greatest ones steal or emulate. Yeah. And so I try to do the same. I try to learn from the others, from the mistakes of others, and I always try to emulate what they were saying. And so in my past businesses, I went through all of it. We worked insane hours. We gave it everything. And the companies still were, at best, mediocre. And the success was nowhere near. And so for the PEX, the first and foremost change that it did was to kind of throw away everything that people are saying and go with my own guts. And so having a normal hours, having a functional work-life balance for the employees, and making sure that people are happy at the workplace. And, we are now almost 5.5 years old, and we lost only 2 people during that time. And it kind of is paying out to change of the approach to it. But there is a lot of other lessons. One of those, especially as being a technologist, I learned that nobody really cares about the technology but your mom, and mom is being polite. And so I always focused on the things that I know. I know how to build scalable systems. And I thought, because I know how to build the systems, the customers will understand the value and the benefits of them. But I was mistaken. And so in this company, we started focusing on customers themselves. So we don't expose them to the technology. We don't tell them this is how we build it. This is why you should be impressed. We only focus on their problems and trying to solve them. And that kind of changed everything. And so a lot of learnings over the years.
So for anybody tuning in and hearing about PEX for the very first time, can you just tell them a little more about exactly what PEX is, what problems it solves, and also how essentially you're delivering value to your customers?
Sure. Well, as I started saying at the top of the podcast, PEX is essentially a search engine. Now that's dissimilar from Google. We go out, we crawl the web, we extract audio-visual content, we fingerprint it, which is a fancy word for hashing, and then we are able to search through it. And then we build a couple of products on top of it. One is DRM, digital rights management, which essentially allows us to identify content across the general internet. That means, let's say somebody uses pieces of movie or pieces of music, we are able to tell to the rights holder, this is where it went, this is what happened to it. And then they can take action against the platform, for instance, get a license for it, or with the user, making a deal together. On the other product that is even more important and more interesting is analytics, where we allow our customers to understand what happens to the content of their competitors, what the platforms look like, what kind of content they ingest, how the platforms evolve, and how the market is evolving, and all of that interesting stuff. And so we kind of work with the rights holders, helping them on one side protect their content and making sure that they generate the most value out of it. And on the other side, helping them to identify or new talent or new venues for the content or the new audience, and connecting them to the right people.
And over the years, you've received offers from tech giants and also offers to run divisions at other major companies, but you turned them all down. I mean, can you tell me more about that period? I mean, was it hard for you to turn them down? And are you ultimately glad that you stuck with your guns and carried on moving forward with PEX and enjoying that success that you are now?
I was fortunate enough to sell a couple of companies in the past, and I know what the process looks like. And it always looks better on the paper than in the reality. And so that was definitely one learning lesson. The other part was, and I was very close to taking some of the offers, especially early on. Usually there were a lot of caveats that I just couldn't bear to do, because I am, at the end of the day, very hard to work for someone else. And so I like to do things my way. I like to do things with people around me, maybe in more transparent and open way, which is not necessarily how other companies operate. And at this point, we just got big and successful enough as a company that the offers, even when they are large, are essentially not meeting our own needs. And so as a company, we are doing well enough to fund our own growth and our own function for foreseeable future. And we want to see how far we can take it. And so it's not as interesting to us how much money is out there.
And looking back, I mean, you've gone across the whole journey, the whole startup journey there, those tremendous highs and those tremendous lows. For other startup founders listening, what are the biggest lessons that you learned in that time?
Well, there is a couple of them. One is that when you hear what if or if from a customer, meaning if you will do this, I will pay, it means go away. And so never chase it ever. They will never pay. And most of those are just in nuances. The same goes to VCs. If you ever hear VC saying if you will deliver this, it means just no. Essentially, it's like with any other nuanced situation. If you don't hear yes, then everything else is no. And that is a huge lesson because in prior companies we burned out a lot of funding, a lot of money, and a lot of resources and our own energy on chasing deals that will never happen. Well, in this one, we only do what is being paid for. And so it's kind of one of the most important lessons, because if you run out of money, there's nothing else to do. Treating people well, not just the way that you want to be treated, but the way that you feel like they deserve to be treated. And so we treat everyone like a grown-up. That means we don't decide for them what they're supposed to know. We just tell them everything, and we let them to figure things out. Helps a lot when tough times come, makes them more resilient and more committed to the business, especially when they feel like they were part of the decision. The team then pulls for the same string and kind of rows towards the same direction, which is incredibly important. There's a lot of other lessons that I personally learned about myself as being sole founder. One of those is I'm not here alone. We have close to 40 people at this point. And one of the big things that I learned, especially at PEX, is that I can be vulnerable with the others, and they will not break under that pressure. Maybe the opposite way, I will break under that pressure if I keep it piling on myself. Asking for help is a big one, and not just from my own colleagues, but from the investors and people around me. From my own general network. And then everything around health, mental, physical. People let themselves to burn out, especially startup founders, because, if we don't do it, nobody will. But I found out that there are no fires so important that you just cannot wait. And so it's completely fine to go home on Friday night and take a couple of hours of sleep rather than just banging your head against the wall the whole weekend. And so, yeah, mostly those.
Fantastic advice. And as someone that's built a company that flies in the face of the tech work-life imbalance and also encourages both performance and outside passions, I've got to ask, what are you most proud of with everything that you've achieved with PEX?
I will say definitely people. The quality of people that we were able to attract and retain is insane. And the fact that they are sticking with us even when times are not as good, is something that just gives me an incredible strength and brings a lot of happiness. And I'm proud that when I see my colleagues grow in the roles that they've never been exposed to before. And then generally seeing where the product can go when people are led to be creative and maybe let be instead of being micromanaged. And so those will be definitely the biggest ones for me.
So what's next then for PEX? Is there anything else you can share with us about the road ahead?
Well, we are definitely taking opportunities on the market conditions. European Union recently enacted a new copyright directive that has some implications to the general UGC world, and so we want to definitely participate in that. But our vision in general is just to leveling the playing field and making sure that everybody can participate, especially as more people are coming online and more people are having access to the distribution channels and creative tools. And so we want to be part of that. We want to be somewhere in the middle, quietly sitting there as a general network that helps the creators and rights holders to generate the revenue that they kind of are owed to, but also not preventing general users and users like you and me having access to their content and being blocked on the basis of platform fights that are not helping to the end customers.
And for anyone listening that wants to find out more information, maybe watch a few videos or an online demo of everything that PEX can do, can you just remind everyone listening of where they can find you online, and also contact a member of your team if they do have any additional questions?
Sure. Well, the company is under PEX.com, PEX.com. We also are on Twitter as @PEX. The email is info@pex.com, and we are all around.
Excellent. Well, I've loved having you on today, and I love the advice that you've offered to fellow startup founders out there, because I think it's so important to pay attention to those nuances in language, and you don't go chasing deals that are just not going to happen. But most importantly of all, of course, is I love how you've put people at the heart of your startup journey.
Yeah.
That's got to be a big part of your success too. But a big thank you for coming on and joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
What a great story. And I love how he learned about entrepreneurship in the most unexpected way possible. And although his father's path was far from easy, he knew right then at age 11 what he wanted to do. And he followed that dream and started and ran his own company. And flash forward a few decades to California, where he started PEX and made that dream a reality. And PEX delivers that independent video and music analytics and rights management services to enable creators, rights holders and marketers to find, measure and leverage the value of content right across the web. And despite that bumpy financial start, PEX is now expanding as a service and seeking out ways to prevent copyrighted material from being uploaded, especially as that legal landscape shifts thanks to the new regulations in EU and of course everywhere. But I loved today's conversation. There was so much value in there for startup founders too. Like I said a few moments ago, chasing deals that are never going to happen and putting people at the heart of everything. But what were your takeaways? If you would like to comment, ask me a question, come on the show, or even just say hello, you can email me techblogwriter@outlook.com or send me a DM on Twitter @NeilCHughes. And if you want my help or want to browse through 900 other similar interviews today, pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. But it's time for me to get back to my camping checklist and prepare for next week. But I'll be back tomorrow with another episode with another fantastic guest. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.